All right, good morning, everyone. I will call our August board meeting, order at 8:05. August, yes, you all. All right. Well, since we missed July, we have a full agenda here, or not missed, but we did have a meeting in July. We have a full agenda here. Well, we will start with our committee reports, audit and finance, and then on July 23rd.
Thank you. Excuse me, I can take that. We have two meetings that took place for us, excuse me, one in July, one in August. The minutes have been provided to you. Just as a quick recap, in July, we did review the incremental, we reviewed the financials, and we did pass them forward, noting an incremental increase in many of the operating expenses, which is happening kind of across the board to many people. We also reviewed business insurance policies, and we moved that to the board. We approved that, as well as reviewed, as we do every meeting, the financial projections for 26. I'm sure there'll be information on that relative to new grants and things of that nature. In the August meeting, I will say more of the same to some extent. We did review the financial statements and approved those. And we did again review where the insurance proposals had stood, and there was more information relative to the vendors that we would be purchasing from, and it was a good review of insurance. And we talked about the shortfalls in 26 and the 27 draft budget.
I want to be clear about the insurance. We're not requiring a separate resolution to approve it, but we did want the audit and finance group to go through because we were essentially overhauling our insurance portfolio. We were looking to get cyber coverage, which we didn't have, and we then held a competitive RFP with an intention of using local services to the extent that we could. We had choices there about the total amount of coverage and the combination of vendors, and we wanted to make sure that more than the staff was involved in evaluating the pros and cons of that. Ultimately, that we have executed those changes with the exception of one policy which will have to wait until the new year to execute, which is the liability policies associated with our property. But we do now have what we believe to be much better coverage for cyber, more than $1 million, and a $1 million umbrella policy, all of which was able to be procured for less money than we were spending on insurance before. And Deanne did months worth of work. We used every local vendor that could interview here. 2 of them were chosen as part of the solution set, and our intern, I'm stuck with you are. Jack did a spectacular financial analysis that actually caused some of the insurers to change their proposals to adapt to some of the questions and things that he found from other players. Was way beyond what we would expect somebody at that level to be able to do. So the outcome has been really, really good. And I really appreciate the time that the audit finance group put in multiple meetings to help us there.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And there was no other committees, correct? Oh, sorry, I just government on August 12th. Do you have an update?
Yeah, I wasn't there, and I can read the report.
Or doesn't matter to me?
Doesn't matter, okay. So, the governance meeting was held on August 12th at 9 a.m. And the main purpose of the meeting was to introduce a new member. Our good friend, Jim Marco, is retiring in 11 days. And has put forth a suggestion for the committee to replace him on this board. And his resume is attached to this packet. His name is Michael Aliata. He's a director at Glen Falls Hospital and has been really a project leader over multiple projects over their time. I don't know, Jim, if there's anything you can add about Michael.
If you've seen the emergency department, then it's, the way it's going on, Mike is in charge of that project. And I think we were able to make the open house incredibly good work that he does, so.
So for our committee, we wanted to put forward the recommendation to add Michael as the board member to replace Jim's position. And that's really, I think, all we discussed.
You got it.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that I introduced there, which was, when Jim, falls off that, I was suggesting that we allow the committee to fall into 3, so that a quorum of 2 would allow us to conduct a meeting, because with 4, we require 3, and sometimes we struggle to be able to get those things done, which then impacts our ability to advance things to the full board. That was my suggestion.
Does this work well done?
Well, eventually, I think you would at the time that you would bring them in.
Okay.
Could vote to remove that committee here.
Thank you very much, Sue.
Mm-hmm.
Review of the financials.
I do apologize, I just printed out this balance sheet right now, and clearly I made a mistake with the checks that I just issued really quickly, and this balance sheet, I think I entered the wrong date on the check. So, the total assets as of July 31st are, there's a small difference, variation with this balance sheet that I just printed, I'm very sorry. It's $908,115. The available cash is $448,445. The accounts receivable is $190,000. That is all monthly service contracts, but we received a check for $70,000 in August. I just reissued the request for one of our payments. I think the county is catching up. The prepaid there's a misplaced comma there. It's $27,170. That includes $7,000 prepaid for the fall sponsorship of the Albany Business Journal Economic Outlook Breakfast, and as well as the regular monthly health and insurance security costs. The right of use asset is also on that's part of the you have it as the other assets. That's $86,073. That's the lease liability, and you can see that it nets out with the other current and long-term liabilities that are also included. Total liabilities as of July 31st are $111,159. The accounts payable is $2,650. Nothing else, not just regular monthly bills. Our total equity as of July 31st stands at $797,000. And the net income as of July 1st is $35,000. So moving to the statement of activities. For the month to date, the billing for our contract services are on track. We've received payment from Town of Queensbury, actually also in August. There's a general timing lag between the budget and the actuals. We budgeted $5,000 from LDC for entrepreneurial support. I just got 2 checks actually for $5,000. So we had budgeted a total of $15,000 for the year. So we're going to receive $10,000 in August. The 500 and on the grant side, from that 7,900, 5,800 is a pass-through. That you don't see on these abbreviated financials. 21,000 includes the unexpended portion from that set aside. So all told, in that 7,900, 58,000 gets paid to the contractor, and whatever's left over goes up.
So let me clarify.
Yeah, please.
$7,000 a month is what it costs or essentially is what our financial implication is for the child care work that we're overseeing. 5,800 of that is a pass-through to consultants that we're overseeing. 1,200 is essentially our portion of what we do to manage that program, and that should be consistent from month to month. So all she's doing is making sure that you see some of those actually appear, and some of them do not. The pass-through does not, and the 1,200 does. But it's all part of the same $7,000.
It's just, there's a variation of what she's charged, like what she has for mileage or whatever, right?
So we take any expenses that we have to reimburse her for, as well as our management portion as the management fee associated with that. And so far, those have been very minor, but they differ from month to month.
month-to-date expenses, sport and development is under. We are gonna save money even with adding this new slew of insurance for cybersecurity. We're going to be saving money, on our insurance in the long run. Program expenses, there's an apparent overage, but that again, that's the consultant, that's a pass-through. Otherwise, we're running under budget. Overhead expenses, the costs are trending upwards slightly. Just a little bit, almost every vendor has gone up. There's been National Grid, Spectrum, et cetera. That's $644, that was invoiced in another month, but that's a pass-through for the LBC portion of our QuickBooks subscription. And year-to-date, we're tracking pretty close to budget. We're off by 800.
So that looks like we're on plan, but essentially what we've done is adjust the expenses to lower income. We had some discussion at the Audit and Finance Committee about the fact that, I had advocated that we continue to try to set stretch goals for membership, but we, for 3 years in a row, essentially settled somewhere between $95,000 and $100,000. That's our entitlement. So we have consistently underrun our revenue, and what we do is then adjust our expenses to match. But we had a fairly healthy discussion, which I'll talk about later with the county, about the long-term sustainability of our approach. Also had that the Audit Finance Group, and I'll wait for later to talk through that.
Any questions for Dan? All right, thank you very much. And through both of the items here, so if we can do these approvals together. I'll ask for a motion to approve the July 2026 financials and the June meeting minutes, which are here in your packet. We didn't go over them. They're in your packet if you want to look at them. So, thank you, Kathy, thank you, Matt. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. On to, you want to do board discussion or okay, we'll do board discussion first. Membership and sponsorship. Last time they met, we stood around the room. People took charge of going after some businesses that we were hopeful to bring in. Does anyone have any successful meetings or anything you need support with?
Has the one pager been updated at all?
It's digitally, we all have access to it. I don't think it was printed out here, but you can look it up.
Okay.
I think, Eric, you did send it to everyone,
Yes,
right?
I can send it up.
If it's not updated, we can update it.
One thing we've been considering is putting contemporary press pieces that talk about particularly economic impacts and growth that's occurring here, especially for new members who may be unaware. This conversation came up with the county yesterday. Nate suggested that as the county's budget officer that we be more aggressive in promoting our role in that growth. That's particularly important, I think, to members that are outside of the area, so they understand that they're not investing in belonging to a group, they're investing in a growing economy. So we'll try to make that material available together with the one pager so that you have that, and it will constantly update that.
We're doing that too, but double this sort of, what we're kind of taking, even when I was here, that kind of a not out in front of projects that we help with, then, like a local municipality or somebody gets upset by saying, oh, EDC thinks that they delivered this, and it's like, well, that's not what you're saying. You're saying we help facilitate to get this project, right? And you do a lot of work behind the scenes without upsetting people who want to take credit, right?
Yeah, it was interesting to have a conversation where the county, because I've had the other conversations that you're talking about, you and I sat them together. Yeah. But the county specifically asked us to be more aggressive in promoting our role. Well,
The pendulum's coming the other way. We are those meetings, and then it has nothing to do with it. I wouldn't say that, but.
Or if there's anyone else want to add to the list that you see doing work like that, let us know.
Well, one last suggestion. I'm asking you to please not put this away because we're in the back end of the year. Anybody that you talk to now, you're certainly welcome to bring them into a prorated membership, but what I would encourage them to do is to take a role, small, modest, if that's what's appropriate, to sponsor as a way of engaging and then putting membership into their plan for the coming year. We're gonna talk about that, a series of events in the back end of the year, which will be ample opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and the invitation. Also, I think, it was my assignment, Finney Design, they just got a contract with the city to look at the firehouse, Rite Aid situation. So nice to see some of those businesses on the list that we were going after, starting to do work here. Nice to see this a little bit easier coming into our next season and sponsorship of next year's renewal.
So it's a good way to follow up kind of offline to see if the contacts we made deliver. Because I may not hear back directly on the one that I worked on.
We'll put up,
Yeah.
just to the board.
Yeah, just, I don't want to discuss names here, but I'm curious, but actually, like that, everything.
Yeah, I thought that document, Cheryl could have just been with me though, so everyone should be able to see it. And airport, just a discussion with Eric.
Yes.
All right, recommendation for board seat number 4. Was this talked about at the governance? It was, yes. Is it just him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure we didn't miss any others. Does anyone have any questions? Seems like a great fit.
Yes. So the actual date will be in next month's cycle. That's when we would execute whatever change.
We invited Jim to come to next month's meeting, but if he wants to come also, we'll be as a guest, and then we'll be voting that time.
Do you want me to invite him?
Yeah, I think that would be great. And yes, and we would love for both to be here so we can properly manage that transition. Just so you know though, Jim is not going far because he's going to continue in other roles to support us, and we'll talk about
Which is a great segue into our next update, which is the advisory council. A meeting took place last week.
2 of them, yeah.
2 meetings.
Yeah, because there were so
Depending
many
on people's schedules.
busy professionals, we scheduled 2 separate
There's
meetings.
a really great list of candidates to be on this advisory committee that were invited. Eric can share the whole list of who actually attended and see who truly attended or not. But Jim very generously offered his time as a mentor to that group, which is a nice liaison to what we're doing here at the board, and to, answer any questions or just to be there as a helping hand from our side. He has offered to continue to do that, even after his term here is done. Thank you. But Eric, do you want to give an update on how the
Sure.
meeting went last week? That would be great.
Yeah, we had 15 individuals confirm their availability. We had 12 attend one of the 2 sessions. So just 3 folks were unable to make it. They do represent the various contingencies and municipalities all the way, up to Lake George, Queensbury, Glens Falls, all the way up to Warrensburg, and a representative from Screw.
Chester and North Creek.
And Chester and North Creek, yeah.
I'm actually going to read the list, because I think it's nice for everyone here to run into one of these people. If you have the list in front of you, faster than
I don't.
my email, okay?
I can, but
That way, if we run into one of these people, it would be nice for you to thank them or discuss with them.
The intention was to bring in people who represented either sectors or economic activity that is not well represented, as well as geography, to make sure that we were well represented that way, and demographically, to make sure that we were reaching down and bringing people with new voice and new ideas.
I do have, a list that Eric sent me, loading, so I'll let you know. And it was just, Norval Greenberger of Labella, associate here in Glens Falls, Journey was on that list, who, owns multiple properties and restaurants, in the area.
Downtown Social, Downtown City Tavern.
Yeah. Vanessa Hutton of the Carroll Theater in Chester. Kara McCoolahan, who just opened Hometown General Store, she's also a lawyer in the Hudson region.
She's a housing expert.
Expert, yeah. And her husband works at Realize Brokers here, which is nice, they're investing in the area. Journey, who owns from Hospitality Group, Journey Forum. Spencer Bray of Realize Brokers, and he actually just took over the contract for the new state.
36 now.
36
thank you.
36 now.
Yeah.
36
The incubator space. So it's Spencer is business partner at Realize, and the owner, Christina, who owns Pharmacy, will be taking that over. is really exciting. They came to the common council meeting, they have big plans to see through a little bit of what the previous administration had planned for it, but also change it up to be more profitable with private events, opportunities for storage and basic things like bike storage for the residents that wasn't thought out in those buildings, and it just feels like it's a nice fit, especially with Artie and her husband, who will now, if anyone saw, Artie is the director of the Peter Dam Alliance, Canal Alliance, and her husband took over the ed, they will be responsible for the ed, so all events happening within that space, and they'll work really nicely together, I think. So, nice to see those spaces.
We did know at the end of the last town council meeting, they were there pitching the idea of an incubator, and I said, for those that have not been around long enough, Ed is smiling right now.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers the Ultra.
You're on Elseway.
Yeah.
Kingsbury City all went in on that building to start an incubator, right? And here we are, 2.5 years later.
Yep.
Pretty fun.
And I think they're the right people between their expertise in real estate and Christina's expertise in hospitality, really good fit.
And they're working well together. They're, you'll see them together frequently, even on Saturdays when the farmer's market is going on, but, the two groups are working well together.
Oh, that's great. Good to see. Matt Bolton, of Season, to the Adirondack, great fit.
He's a voice into the culinary world that we would like to try to make sure is represented.
It's nice to have someone that, you know, he's wonderful. He's a great fit, yeah. Drew Capabianco, who owns the Hub in Grand Lake, great representative from that area, also a local resident, so has a nice mixed perspective of the area. Jim Marco, our representative. Matt O'Hara of Queen Boat Company, the Freedom Boat Club on Lake George.
That's one of the most, freedom boat clubs in the country.
Wow.
And growing dramatically. We just opened the second location in Bolton. You know, if you spend any time there, you see an enormous amount of traffic coming in and out of there. Perfect for both understanding that part of the economy, but also what it's like to start a new business like that here.
I don't know how to say Lindsay's last name, but out of North Creek, the Weekender Hospitality Operations.
So she's leading what was the Phoenix Hotel's reemergence. So she's overseeing all of it, both the construction as well as the day-to-day operations there. And is a new resident because she's moving here from somewhere else. So both of those experiences are valuable.
Tori Teresi, who is her business, Capillary Physical Therapy, is in Queensbury, is one called representative, a great, another nice addition with mixed opinions. Amanda Radland of Scroon Lake Department Store, representing the Scroon Lake area. Amanda's really energized. I met her, but emailed with her and she's excited. Sean Haslett of Big Bear Company, another North Creek representative.
Although we also run South Florida.
Yeah. They all mix. Lydia Miner of Sustainable PR here at Glens Falls, and then Angela Wang. Is that her last?
And her husband, Ben.
Her husband,
Yeah.
okay, that's great, funny.
Those two folks work out of their homes, out of Warrensburg. They came up from the city, so they represent
The kind
another
of,
minority.
communication we want for people, what they're looking for, why are you looking for your home, what can we do to support you as you work out of your third venture here, so a really nice list that you put together.
And we took some time to educate them about what we do. That's sort of how we started it. Jim's great at that. We talked about the pillars and, you know, maybe the gaps in entrepreneurial support in the area and even in our programming. And then we went around the room and we did introductions. It was your origin story, what brought you here, what keeps you here. And then we took some time to listen, really to find out, you know, what was missing when you started up, what kind of support was essential, and how to define it so that we can sort of fill in those gaps.
That will be an ongoing dialogue we have with them. Some generated some thoughts immediately, and some will probably take some time to be able to articulate the things that they either want or need. We've settled on a rhythm of trying to get them together quarterly, and now we're in the process of scheduling them with the next quarterly meeting, which will have more structure and will likely be less in here and more out in the community. But this, from the time that this idea came to the time that we actually formed a group and started to get feedback from them was relatively quick, and that's due to Eric's work. He small, and with the opportunity is still open. We can add more. There's no limit to the amount here. We'd like it to not be unwieldy, but if there are things that are not represented, either areas, demographics, or industries, we would welcome them there. But it was really spectacular work.
We should invite them to the events that we have this fall. I'm sure there's extra pieces of sponsor deal and things they can't afford to help them. So thanks to have them engaged more than just on the advisory. All right, thank you all. Thanks again, Eric, for your work on that. See you, Jim.
Okay, let's walk through the monthly update quickly.
Very quickly here. Three new engagements we've had. Again, if you look at that chart, we're net up to, we called one out, it was a little bit stale, stalled out, the project, that had to do with the water spots. They kind of suspended animation, so kind of pulled them out of the active pile right now.
And when we did that, I agreed to take the remaining, or 4 water spots that were constructed in a program that we participated in with LISA, to bring justice, recently released people into developing skills. We did that at the Pipers. So we have one here, which I agreed to take as a demonstration unit, but the Pipers has asked that we take the other 4 and try to find long-term homes. So I had talked to the previous administration at the city as well as Queensberry about when and if they might want to use these. In general, people are concerned about how they introduce it because they don't want to create the impression that water is not safe here. But I think they may be useful assets for things like events or when we're extending ourselves into the community. And so we're going to dialogue with the various municipalities and communities to see if these can be useful. In the meantime, we will store all of those units, not in this office, but downstairs in our storage area. And that closed that particular project.
Yeah. Other new ones that we've engaged, 2 of our startups, no surprise there, it's been kind of a trend that they've having a lot of discussions with people considering the businesses or starting them up. One of them is this is interesting, like a wood processor who contacted through a broker down below and said, this person has obviously been reading some of the stuff that's going on with the wood readjustments of the forest industry and the course that we've been making. But they're interested in coming up and seeing what might be a fit for them to do on a small scale. So that's one. And the other one was two young fellows who just graduated from college at Sharp. They want to start up and do a kind of a concierge business for property management on the upper end of properties on the porch. So
Both recent graduates of Glens Falls High School, now finished college, coming home to try to start a business. Clearly, an effort that we want to try to support, not only in terms of what they do, but what they represent.
yeah, very cool. And then the other we have is it's confidential. It's just a business looking for some advisory advice on some succession ideas and planning for the future. But, so we do that kind of thing too. So that's not going to show up as a spot at a location. That's under review.
I'll be meeting with them again today at 11 o'clock in this room.
Yeah. The pie charts are relatively the same. I mean, the chart that shows the startups and small business, it looks like really almost two-thirds of what we're doing is between small startups. But it's a little bit deceiving in the sense that a lot of our time is also working with existing clients and customers and larger entities, and until we talk through some of the activities that are involved with it. But those are the new ones coming at us, so it's interesting. It's not totally surprising to follow and kind of that.
The mix is still tilted to Glens Falls and Queensberry. Roughly 26% is out in the outer county. We're working aggressively to try to make sure we're available like that participation on the advisory board so that we can try to continue to bring more and more initiatives that are outside of that Glens Falls and Queensberry corridor.
Yep. Yep. The following charts are basically summaries of comparing from year-to-year growth. You can see those numbers there. We're now at 83 solar projects that actually, they say we do call them out when we can, when we think it's appropriate, but they kind of steadily go up. And again, they're not all large, big projects, but they all are definite inquiries and things that need tracking. So represents well in terms of what the trend is here, in terms of our activities and our, delivery review.
But it does also highlight the fact that we've got to think about our long-term sustainable model. Because if we continue to grow in terms of the core workflow that we support by 25% a year and our resources stay flat, we will not deliver the same level of service over time. And so we'll have more conversation when John gets done about that.
We also get a lot of engagement with developers and investors that are seeking, we get more input on what's happening. And we have a couple of meetings coming up with some writers that you can talk to. There's interest for sure, and I think unfortunately we've gotten a lot of good coverage, and deservedly so, over the last year or two, based on what's going on. And I think everybody who comes here, we met with the head of the new president of Columbia Economic Development Corp yesterday, and just impressed. They've been here a long time. I can't believe the changes here. So we do have those kind of occasions too that we can do on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's a new stream of activity. Mike heard about that group for a long time. Some of you may know Mike. He's recently retired. But what was interesting is his successor, when he was trying to figure out where to come to try to understand how places that were succeeding were doing it, chose us and asked whether or not he could come up here and spend a couple of hours talking about how we're doing what we're doing, how that might connect to what he's doing in Columbia County or what he's facing. That's not always been the case, and that's also happening north of us. We've been engaged by a number of communities inside the park. We're trying to figure out how to take the things that we've helped in places like North Creek and how would efforts like that develop in other places. So Elizabethtown, Tupper Lake, Screw Lake, all examples where they've made formal inquiries to us. Not necessarily looking for us to do it, but more for us to act as mentors or guideposts on how to do that. I think there's an opportunity in this. We'll talk more about that. Maybe we'll go to this. Activities.
Fish paper, obviously it's big project plan. Discussion.
I didn't know anything went on.
Yeah, what we want to do here is give you a flavor of, so you know what's in these numbers. What are we talking about when we say an active project that we're engaged in? So obviously, intention is fairly clear because we've been very visible in that. We led the effort to not only support them once they notified us of their change in any way that they asked, but also to act as a conduit to the community of what was happening. We then issued a statement along with our peer organizations and in support of what they were doing, and also explaining the role we might take trying to deal with the impacts of that outside of the walls of Finch, which specifically has to do with the timber industry. We're going to talk about that specifically in a minute, but I would say that since in the last month, a significant amount of our activity, double-digit percentage of our activity has been not only in support of them, but the initiatives that surround them. And that's okay. This is non-linear. We won't have to do that all the time, but when one of our major players here is in a position of transition or pivot like they are, that is when we need to activate. And Mike, I hope that we're acting as an ally and an asset.
No, just for the board's knowledge, the EDC has been extremely helpful and supportive of us through this. Obviously, this is a substantial change to the entire Northeast from the timber industry perspective. It also has a good story to the amount of investment we're putting back in the mill position for its future. But through it all, it's got a lot of tentacles. If you covered CDC, and Jim and John and Eric and the team have been really helpful. So we're deeply appreciative of that.
So just so you understand the moving parts here, it's not simply putting out statements and helping them figure out how to manage this transition. They have an active CFA project that's almost 3 years old. There's been a lot of back and forth with the state about it. We try to lift some of that so that they don't have to be involved in every conversation. We've had several conversations with Empire State Development in the last several weeks about it. Some of them get testy because 3 years ago, if we had executed the CFA that we had submitted, I'm not sure whether we would be at the same place that we are today. But, and I continue to make that point, that the processes of the state sometimes are not efficient and productive. And, they don't need to do that. They don't have to go fight that battle. We should fight that battle on behalf of them and other businesses. And I don't mind being testy with ESD when we point out the fact that 3 years ago, we pointed out the modernization that needed to occur and the investment support we were looking for the state to do it. We continue to fight about the wrong things. They want to fight about whether or not the job growth lines up to an algorithm. I continue to tell them that what we're really fighting is to maintain these industries which have a long-standing legacy role here that will not be replaceable in the park. If you eliminate the ability to transfer timber into value, you will never find a substitute for that. I find receptivity at the governor's office. I sometimes find mixed receptivity at Empire State Development, but that's part of our role, is to be in that arena. We've revised and reshaped that CFA so that it's ready to be reviewed now in light of what's occurring here. We've also been working with them as one of a potential stakeholder of a power-related effort, which we've talked about before, this Power Up grant and bringing a secondary high-speed power feed to the city side of the river. We're going to have a meeting about that later today that involves Finch and National Grid. These are all efforts that swirl around Finch. They're not specific, in some cases, they're not specifically to Finch, but would benefit Finch. There's about 5 streams of activity that take a significant amount of time in support of that business. But let's remember what's at stake here. They're the second largest employer in Glens Falls. They've been there for 130 years. They are the last remaining paper mill on the Hudson River. If that site were to close, if that were not to be here, the city would have an impact with its single largest taxpayer and its second largest employer. That site would likely be inactive for an extended period of time, probably the rest of our lives. That's what we're fighting for. And to give them the support and runway they need to avoid that and to thrive in their industry. And we will not be shy about pointing that out to everybody. We just had a meeting this week where Carrie Warner joined us along with Mayor Palmer to talk about all of what these moving parts were down at Finch and to try to make sure that they're aligned and hopefully supportive. The city put out a letter in support, but it was signed by Jeff. Okay, we need to try to figure out how we elevate so that everyone is supporting this, and we're going to continue to advocate for that. All right, so that covers the first 3, or maybe the first 4. So the Working Forest Initiative is an effort that we stepped into to try to help both the state and the community understand what is the impact to both timber harvesters and transporters that consider to be that timber industry. We're likely to seek a study from the state. The way that the governor's office explained it to me is if you want to include something in the budget for next year that would act as a mitigator for this particular industry, the way to do that is to do a state-sponsored study that says this is what we considered and this is what we recommend. You can try to do it where you simply do it on your own, but then you have a fight about whether or not the answers that you're providing are the right ones. So it doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not. We're going to go seek a study, put out an RFP around the timber industry. We've already drafted the first draft. The problem, though, is that in order to do that, I've got to find half the matching funds. So if we seek a $50,000 study that might take 2 to 3 months to conduct, we got to provide $25,000. I'm certain that Finch would be a supporter of that. We're also working to find who might be the others. We've engaged with the Empire State Forest Products Association, both their former leadership and their current leadership, but they just went through a change in director. I've had extended calls with both of them to see what role they might play in this. But we had a discussion at the county yesterday, and we're going to have a further conversation with the LDC about whether they might be a partner in this. And we're looking to see who else might carry it. But at probably next month's meeting, I will bring a resolution to you saying that we, as the EDC, would be the grant administrator and essentially facilitator, and what the financial implication of all of the various partners are in that. But our goal in this is to execute with the right partner quickly to assess the inventory of all the people and organizations that are doing this, all the potential markets, and what recommendations we make to the state in terms of investment to try to create alternate markets for these products. We have some of those ideas already, but we need to figure out how to put it into that format so that it can enter into next year's budget process.
Jim, I think it'd be interesting also to bring the Adirondack Park Agency involved in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what the percentage is, but, and Mike maybe would know this, but how much timber, has been coming from the Adirondack Park? I think it's always been rather significant, and I think this is a negative for the Adirondack Park to be losing this industry, with that timber not being taken out.
So we had an active community 5 years ago when we pursued a grant under the Build Back Better premise from the federal government, where we created a coalition, including the Adirondack Park agency at the time. Dan Keller was the economic development guy, he's now leading Roost. Both of those organizations have indicated support in whatever it is that we do. So we're reactivating that network as a part of this effort. They would be essentially nodes in the study that we would engage as we do the work. And then their voice will come through whatever it is that we do. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, the answer is, Judy, not as much as you would think. Seeing that we're centered on the south end of the park, we stretched into the park. There's our pier up in Ticonderoga that sources far more in the park. And so there's been a lot of confusion. People want to talk about the Northeast impact, people want to talk about the park impact, people want to talk about New York State impact. Definitely there's a park impact, but not as significant as you would have thought, and not as significant as it would have been 20 years ago. And then there's this other whole debate that's going on. There's the economic perspective, which I think, we're addressing, but then especially in the park, there's this whole forest health, and what will the forest look like 20 years from now without a low-grade market. So there's a social science to this, where everybody's having this debate on forest health and the future of the forest, and then there's the economic impact, and then there's all these different regional boundaries people are introducing into the conversation.
So I'd recommend the place where there's still dollars for study from the federal government that would qualify, I think, here is the Northern Borders Commission.
Yeah, we've engaged them as well.
And
that process is going to take 2 years.
it takes time. But this is also trade adjustment, so there also are federal dollars associated with trade, so you can get your match. The other piece of this is two things. One is that you have Regeneron that is expanding in Saratoga County, and they have recently insourced all of their packaging. And I had a meeting yesterday with Mr. Gardner at Bench, and suggested that relationship be, and this might be a role this group can play, because they have moved away from other relationships they had with how they actually package the drugs and move them in trade, both domestically and internationally. Seems like a role for paper that can be used in packaging that could be part of the future state of what Cinch already does. The other piece for the forest is I'd like to recommend that we get engaged with some of the, resilient building organizations that are in America. There's an awful lot of work that's been done at ESF and other places with the use of cellulose-based product in different building materials. Love to see a manufacturer here that was doing that new age work, because that would be long-term, and it would give a role then for that continued foresting to occur, but now in a new way that would be valuable nationwide and beyond. And so I think there's an appetite right now as you're looking at that climate change scenario. It's just about positioning, right? Positioning so that the right argument is made in the right way. So I think that's a role that this group should be engaged in.
So that was the central theme of the study, or the effort that we saw under the Build Back Better grant 5 years ago, so we can reactivate that, and I agree with you. The feedback that we get is there are both short-term and long-term issues, and that's a long-term player. So we're trying to address both at the same time, and there may be a follow-on to what we initiate here. The pressure we're being placed under by the governor's office is to give them something to react to. And that may be a continuing plan. And there are resources that are available, including the ones you said, which we would love to tap. But we also need to try to help them understand how can they respond in the short term to trying to deal with the people who are affected day to day. So both of those things, we're working on both planes. And we'll keep you informed as we work through this. I would expect by next month, we will have something for you to improve. We may have it sooner, and it's possible that in the interest of time, we may even have to organize some kind of emergency meeting in order to bless whatever it is that we're going to agree to do, if 30 days is too long to wait. I spend probably 3 or 4 hours a day on this every single day. And we gotta figure out how to get it into somebody else's hands so that the work can go on and we can support it and not be the ones trying to learn it. But everything you said is a part of that. And so we'll come talk to you further about that as we work through this, to make sure that all of your thoughts, including, I didn't know about the Regeneron thing, but that's an interesting piece to add to this. So,
I think it's a good idea for the funding, you know, the borders and that stuff takes so long to get, the scope of the initial, study can only be, you know, this, but the broader scope is this. You know, this is a 6 to 12 month, this is a 2 to 4 year. If you come right out of the gate saying, we're doing this now, but long term, this is our plan, we're gonna go after the funding for that. You don't get kind of accused of the study on the study, right? Nobody likes to fund the study of the study. But if this first phase is the first step to a broader plan, like, then you go after those funds. And you're telling people up front, listen, we're gonna have another part to this equation. So when we come back to you, or we build upon this, ask for another grant, or the borders or whatever, this was all part of the plan all along, you know? Just it's an easier pitch when you actually go out for that bigger money. Saying, well, can you already get money for this? No. Right to the gate, we said, this is what we're doing now, but this is our broader plan.
The parallel to this is the freshwater study, which we've been talking about now for several years. Important changes have happened in the last several weeks around here. The state has been ready to receive our proposal to do a study about how we might advance the idea of a freshwater center and investment around freshwater protection. They're ready to receive it. We drafted a RFP, but I was waiting until the LGA and RPI had more time to decide what role they wanted to play, because doing that with them as partners would be stronger. I serve on the LGA's board to try to create this connectivity. In the last several weeks, they have initiated a process to go start a much more aggressive capital campaign, and this is now likely to be the centerpiece of it. So their role in this is starting to take shape, and with it, Rensselaers, who's now the owner of the intellectual property associated with the Jefferson Project, and the role that they would play as a part of that. So I wanted to make sure you didn't think that we had dropped this idea. We are essentially trying to make sure that this idea has the strength that it would allow us to be developed with partners. And probably in the next 2 to 3 months, we will be able to put together a better proposal, which we will also bring to the state, with the intent to try to get some of that funding at least identified in next year's budget process as well. The interesting thing about both of these is these are regional initiatives. These are initiatives that we're being asked to do by stakeholders, sometimes that are in Warren County and sometimes outside of Warren County. And that highlights over and over the fact that there is not any corollary to us, north of us. Gary Douglas runs the North Country Chamber out of Plattsburgh, and it has some overlay into the heart. But the timber industry doesn't have an advocate. There are professional organizations that act as a lobbying organization, but no one from an economic standpoint to advocate for them as an economic entity. This is an opportunity for us, if we're going to do the work to support Finch, we're going to try to support this industry as one of our industries. There's value to the region, and it allows us to think about how to diversify our funding, because there may be some role for us to play in whatever comes out of this study that allows us to broaden our funding, but do it in an aligned way that does not take us from our core mission. The rest of them, I think you can see, there's a lot of activity going on in addition to these things. The one thing I would point out to you is Flowmatic did make a CFA application. They're going to add 30,000 square feet to their facility, or at least proposing to do that with state aid, and we've been participating in a pretty extensive application process with them and support with Empire State Development on that. Also, Queensbury Business Park, we still are sitting on that offer that was made. It's awaiting DEC questions, and so we recently started the process to extend their offer through that period of time. While they're still waiting, they're waiting for information from DEC.
Online mapper, which is
Is there a DEC up right now? What is the expected timeline?
This is long meeting, but DEC right now has created confusion because they created an overlay over wetland maps without clear indication of what they would or would not enforce associated with those things, and it has spooked a lot of people. And as a result, we're trying to help clarify in a case-by-case basis whether or not there is additional work or additional regulation that's required beyond what's already been done. I don't believe that will wind up being the case here, but they want some clear indication of that, which is very hard to get.
Well, and DEC, as a body, back away from the updated wetlands regs, but internally, some may not agree with that. How's that?
There you go. DEC is also in the middle of, I spoke on behalf of the Summit Senior Housing Project at Queensbury. I did it for the County Board, I did it at the Queensbury Town Board this past week. And DEC and its role is coming into every conversation there. That has more to do with the map between Glens Falls and Queensbury. You and I know a lot about that. I wanted to highlight to you some of the media coverage. I mean, you can go out and see it, but it's not necessarily that we've been trying to be more intentional. It just means that a lot of the things we're working on have, I think, a lot of interest. In fact, this is the most recent Glens Falls Business Journal, and I've given a number of interviews, but it seems like all of them showed up in this issue. So there's 4 stories in this that talk about, specifically about the things the EDC is doing. One has to do with the logging industry, which we talked about extensively. Another has to do with the current state of South Street and what are some of the issues as well as opportunities there. There's a regional economic outlook. I gave that interview months ago, but it showed up here. And then there's a long article about the mosaic work we're doing with all the arts organizations. I think if you were to read this, you would think, oh my God, how are they possibly doing this? It's all the stuff we've been talking about. They just haven't covered all in one, thing. Yeah. We've been on a number of podcasts and continue to look for opportunities to be available in video, but perhaps the most promising is one that Bob is helping us with. I don't know if you remember, but we featured in a documentary the Spectrum News did about the park called the Unicorn. We helped curate that and helped identify people that we think they should talk to, and that documentary was just nominated for an Emmy Award. And so we met with Susan Arbetter to talk about what comes next there. And to net it all out, she's going to do a series of follow-ups over the coming year, 4 issues, 10 to 15 minutes at a time. And she's asked for our help to determine what those are and what role we would want to play. We're not paying anything for this. I think this has to do with the fact that we're seen as a good navigator to some of these issues. The underlying theme that we will take to all of this is the fact that the way that resources are allocated in the park needs to be structurally changed if we're going to have impact in any of these areas. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about housing or infrastructure or child care or broadband. When we try to allocate money the same way that it goes in Long Island or Buffalo, it doesn't work in the park. There's no reason that they should do it that way in the park, because the park is an entity of the state, and they can modify those things. And she's going to help us bring that message. In fact, she's so willing to do that we asked her whether she would support an event where we actually talked about these issues and brought some of the other players who would say similar things to bear. And she's agreed to do that after the election. So sometime in late November, early December, we will likely have an event that we do together with her Spectrum News here in the area about to talk about this larger issue. And all of that came as a result of the ongoing dialogue that Bob has been able to help keep alive between Susan and us in this larger issue. You can also see the social media pieces here. I mean, they just continue to trend, reasonably up. I think this continues to be the work that John and Eric are doing to try to improve. We will get more and more structured about this over time, but I do feel like we are answering the call about what our sense of who we are out. I know we're running up against this, but there's important things that we need to talk about so you're aware. I've had the first budget meeting with the county, and I've had discussions, at least initial conversations at both Glens Falls and Queensbury. Let me remind you where we come from. The majority of our funding comes from the municipalities. Glens Falls currently pays us only $10,000 a year. Queensbury cut their funding in half over the last 3 years. The county has been supportive, and in fact, I believe that we got at least a signal that they would support us, that they may be cutting budgets at the county, but I don't believe ours will be one that's cut. But just the same, if we're flat funded by them, and we continue to get the pittance that we're getting from Glens Falls and Queensbury, we sustained at least $60,000 worth of additional costs just to maintain the people that we have here in the office that we have here. And so we continue to have to cut programs in order to do that. There's really only 2 ways out of this. I don't believe that we're going to be able to modify dramatically the way that these communities fund us. I think there's an opportunity in Queensbury, as there's a new election and a new supervisor, to address what their ongoing relationship would be and what the right level of support is. We could potentially
conversations with Glens Falls about whether $10,000 a year, which doesn't even cover a third of the study that we did on Tech Meadows, is really sufficient. But ultimately, we're gonna have to figure out how to expand the number of players that we add value to and the sources of funding that we can receive as a result. The child care grant is an example, as is this timber thing, of opportunities where we're playing in spaces that have direct impact on our mission here, but have value to others. And if there are funders out there, like the Adirondack Community Foundation, or other players in the park that are working on economic issues that we can help, we need to be open to it. And I wanted to make sure you understand that, because I shared that with the county yesterday. They have a choice to make. We are probably other than Washington County, we are the lowest funded economic development organization in the capital district. Okay, and remember that Washington County doesn't have a hotel and doesn't have anywhere near the industrial base that we do. I also understand the situation they're in. Okay, they're not in a position to dramatically increase our budget. But if they can't, then we have no choice but to broaden our mission. And that shouldn't be a political issue, but it might be. And so I was trying to be open about that. And Mike, you were there. I want to make sure that we don't give this short shift, because this may come up before our next meeting, and I need you to be informed about this. What was your thoughts about the conversation that we had yesterday? It was pretty open.
I thought you did a great job. I think it opened the eyes of the leadership that was there about what the EDC is doing, especially because Finn's timing was perfect for this conversation. But it was positive. I can't commit that we're going to do something different. I don't believe we're going to cut, but I've been advocating for some additional funding. I have no idea. I'm one of 20 on a board, right? But it's like this next to the last page, where it talks about all the media that you're getting, is an important thing. There's a few people in the community that would want to cut us down and cut this organization down. It doesn't make any sense. So what we need to do is kind of put more word out to the public, to the community, of what we really do. And I'm kind of disappointed that we have 4 articles in one edition. It would have been nice if we had 4 separate ones. But we need to get the message out. I think this organization is doing a fantastic job for what we're trying to accomplish. And it's not easy. So the county recognizes, some of the county recognize that. We're going to see what we can do, but I can't commit to anything until October, November.
The players who are interested in cutting, funding, is it a budget thing, or is it because we're working outside of Warren County lines, or?
So most of it's personal. It hasn't come up that we're working outside of Warren County lines, but I'm sure it will. It'll come up in a much bigger discussion with more people engaging.
I mean, my perception is that a majority of the players at the board level will be supportive of our mission that at least flat funding is not some kind of modest increase. And we've cultivated those relationships. We're in every community, and we're trying to add value in any way that they share with us, as long as it's aligned with our mission. We're in public meetings in North Creek, in Chester, in Oregon, in ways that we have not been before. But I also think that we need to think about the investments that we make. We spend, I think it's $7,000 to be a partner with Albany Business Journal to do this power breakfast, just so we're on the slate and they come and do an event with us every year. They came and had a conversation with us about how we might be able to expand our presence. That is the way that most business leaders get their dues south of us. And I think there may be a tool here. I'd like to talk to them about how they might tie additional investment with them to greater membership conversion for us. That's one avenue. I think the second avenue is on the backside of the agenda. We listed all the events that are in the backside of the year. I'd like to balance these out better, but in the next few months, there's 4 major events that are occurring here. We are having a public engagement, the first of probably 2 or 3 in regards to Tech Meadows, early in next month. That is going to be held at the pipe fitters, but that's our role of showing the things that we are doing on behalf of the city and the region for significant redevelopment, things that would have dramatic transformational impact. I'm sure that the community is going to have a lot to say, both, pros and cons about what we're proposing, but we're leading that in conjunction with the city. You'll see a lot of press about that, or at least some announcements about that. Our luncheon is scheduled for the last day in September.
gonna be, at Kathy's place again, because it's the biggest room, and we want to fill the biggest room we can.
Beautiful.
We've secured our speaker, it's somebody who is in the same vein as, who we had last year to talk about placemaking. This is really about the war for talent and what it is specifically that many people are looking for, what we're aligned with, and what maybe we have gaps on. It's an entity that gives this kind of presentation nationwide, and I feel confident that they will add to the message that we had before. The Albany Business Journal's North Country Breakfast is then followed in October. I'm a panelist. When we subscribe to that, we don't get to pick the topic. They tell us what the topic is, and then we try to adjust to whatever it is they want to cover. But it will probably have to do with the future of the economy in northern New York. That's my guess based on some of the first indications we have. And then the Susan Arbetter session that I suggested is going to come after that. All of these are opportunities to raise our profile in the community, and I think maybe at the time that these budgets are being considered, hopefully sustain the conversation about our role.
Of course. Just one other thing, Melanie, if you don't mind, and Jim. The Workforce Development Board has made some decision about cutting funding for our workforce development team. I don't know if you've all heard about that, but it will be manageable next year. The year after, it's going to be significantly more difficult in terms of, I think, a 30% plus drop in terms of what LISA is able to do for us in our businesses. So I just wanted to mention that. I have to run to a board meeting.
Yeah, I probably don't have too much to say about that at the county.
No, it's fine. We're good.
Yeah. I wanted to let everyone know that St. Mary's Academy is going to be honoring Betty Little at the end of January. Betty's been an important part of our community, Warren County. She just recently retired from the Order Board, so she's had a huge involvement in not just state government, but our local. So we're going to be honoring her, and I wanted to let you guys know about it, and any way that you'd like to participate in the event would be brought a couple copies, so.
Yeah, we'll jump in there for sure.
Okay.
Are we taking you on the funding thing?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't have it electronically, but we can save it as a, save it, we can scan it and send it to you, yeah.
We'll get it to you, Ashley.
I should have. Thank you.
Go ahead, man. Sorry.
The people on the advisory council, if they interact with their supervisors and they're mentioning what they're doing with the EDC and being involved, that helps too. Somebody goes before the meeting and says, hey, local businesses are part of the council, maybe the funding should be up for support. Just an idea, right? Like, everybody, supervisors got to hear EDC aside from us. I think that's what.
It's part of sort of building that bench.
Urban players who I tell you about Drew, Drew's a perfect example, we could even draft something for him to ask a bunch ago.
And we're supporting Drew in some of his initiatives.
And that won't.
Great.
Ron, you're involved now. Yes.
Is there specific people that we need to get to that are just the naysayers? That have any kind of,
It's a difficult climate. I think we do have our usual naysayers right over there. I've seen people when I was chair, we were combating this years ago. Talking about that.
Is there anything
It's also
to do?
much, I think that everyone might have this allergy.
It's a personal responsibility, like this meeting is our responsibility.
Government, from a small level to the county, is increasingly not sustainable, right? Like, we're 15, 16 years out from 2% tax cap, and it is finally come home to roost. It is not, even from the city, I don't know what the mayor's trying to do and what she's dealing with. I don't think any of them. I work with a lot of them in budget season right now, unlike anything I've ever seen in the last 2 or 3 years. It's gonna come to a head where big tax increases are gonna have to hit just to sustain getting the roads fixed, making sure the sewer flows and water flows. And it's my big concern that we need that road here. I hope it's kind of a little month at least. So I don't want to be the county's position, and we're part of that, right? So
part of our mission is to help them understand that we're on the revenue side of that equation. You know, we drive tax base and investment in place, and you don't want to cut your revenues in the face of declining, other revenues, you know? And
So their difficulty is they must balance the budget,
Yeah.
right? That they can't borrow for revenue. It's not constitutional, right? So it's.
My expectations from the county are modest. I think Mike will do his work to try to at least sustain us. Maybe there will be a modest increase, but I don't count on it, and I think we would probably seek some additional funds from the LDC to try to make up the short-term gap. But the long-term gap is in opening ourselves up to the work that people are asking us to do, is aligned with the place, and I was very open with the county. If you're in a position where you can't do this, you can't fight with me about the fact that I'm having to figure out how to make it work, because this is in your interest for us to continue to be viable, so we can continue to work for you and them.
Yeah.
But it's a line, and I get that it's a line we have to work on together. I appreciate, you know, we went a bit over, but this is important.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other business announcements? Great, if not, I'll make a motion to adjourn the August board meeting. Thank you, Laura, seconded by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your summer.
Thank you.
Hang on, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
And you tell me when we're on.